Have you ever noticed that the kinder you are, the easier it is for people to take you lightly? You hold back, you empathize, you think about others first. Yet, what you get in return is blunt words, emotional indifference, and over time, even worse treatment. Meanwhile, people who are firm, who explain less, who do not constantly accommodate others, are rarely disrespected or pushed around. The truth is, the problem is not that you were too kind or not strong enough. The problem lies in a very small habit you repeat every day without realizing it. An invisible signal that other people's brains read very clearly. And that signal says, this person's boundaries can be pushed. What is interesting is that you do not need to change your personality. You do not need to become cold, and you do not need to learn how to speak harshly. You only need to do one thing, once, correctly. When you do, the way people treat you changes. Toxic people begin to pull away naturally, without arguments, without drama. And the people who truly matter start respecting you more, even though you did not say anything extra. If you have ever wondered why you always feel like the most exhausted person in your relationships, this video might be the most important thing you have ever needed to hear. And the moment you do this, life already starts to feel lighter. But before we talk about pulling back or setting boundaries, there's one uncomfortable truth you need to face. Toxic people do not cling to you because you are weak. They cling to you because they sense something even more tempting than weakness: your reactions. In behavioral psychology, human emotions function like buttons. The easier you are to press, the more you become a control panel in someone else's hands. Toxic people do not need you to break down or cry. A slight change in your facial expression, a shift in your tone, a rushed explanation is more than enough. Because for them, the moment you lose your calm is the moment they feel powerful. Many people believe toxic individuals enjoy hurting others. In reality, what they are addicted to is the feeling of controlling the situation, controlling the rhythm of your emotions, forcing you to adjust, explain, or fix the atmosphere. If you pay close attention, you will notice a familiar pattern. They make a sarcastic comment, then go quiet. They drop a criticism and watch your reaction. They speak in a half-joking tone, but their eyes are not joking. If you force a smile, they know you are swallowing discomfort. If you over-explain, they know you are seeking validation. If you get angry, they know they have pulled you into the game. No matter how you respond, as long as you respond, they are being fed. Why call it feeding on emotions? Because your emotions give them three things: attention, advantage, and proof that they can reach you. The frightening part is they do not need to win an argument. They only need you to lose self-control. And the faster you react, the more power you hand over to them. Reacting quickly is an instinct. It's like flinching when you hear a loud noise. But in communication, that instinct becomes a weakness because it makes you programmable. A toxic person only needs to learn which words make you panic, which behaviors trigger your fear of being disliked, which topics push you into explaining yourself. Once they know that, they repeat it like a formula. The first time you react, they test. The second time, they remember. The third time, they use it like a switch to turn your emotions on and off. Here's a very ordinary example. Have you ever met someone who changes their attitude the moment you say no to a favor? At first, they say, "Oh, it's fine." Then later comes the passive comment, "Yeah, you're busy, not like some of us who have nothing to do." If you rush to explain, "No, it's not like that. Today, you have just handed them your neck. Because they have learned something important. All they need to do is trigger your guilt, and you will adjust yourself automatically. At that point, they do not need to pressure you pressure yourself. Or another type, someone who likes to provoke you in front of others. They say, "I'm just joking," but the joke is aimed directly at your sensitive spot. If you react, you lose composure. If you stay silent but look uncomfortable, they still win because they made you uneasy in public.
You see the pattern. Their entire game is about pulling you out of your calm state, nothing more. So what they are looking for is not a weak person, they're looking for a reactive person. A weak person who does not react is still difficult to manipulate, but a strong person who reacts emotionally is extremely easy to control, because external strength cannot compensate for internal loss of control. This is where many people misunderstand the problem, and this is exactly where the 3-second rule comes in. It sounds simple, but it is a powerful psychological shift.
The 3-second rule is not a trick. It is how you reclaim ownership of your emotions. Those 3 seconds create a gap between stimulus and response, where you move from instinct to choice. In behavioral psychology, a pause that small is enough to completely change the direction of an interaction. You stop being dragged by their words and return to the position of control. When they say something uncomfortable, you do the opposite of your old habit. You do not rush to speak. You do not rush to prove yourself. You do not rush to laugh it off. You look at them, keep a neutral expression, take 1 breath. In your head, count 1, 2, 3. Then you respond with something simple and flat. Okay, I see. All right, if you say so. No sarcasm, no arrogance, just no emotional feeding. Why does this confuse them? Because their brain is waiting for a reward. They threw the bait and expected you to bite. When you do not, the system fails. It is like pressing a button and nothing happens. They will try again, a harsher comment, a deeper jab, and you keep the same rhythm. Pause, look, breathe, neutral response. At that point, they genuinely freeze because they cannot find a handle to pull you with. Calmness has a strange kind of power. It exposes people who thrive on disruption. When you do not react, their words begin to sound awkward, even inappropriate. You do not need to point it out, the room feels it. Calmness is like light. It reveals who is trying to throw you off balance. And because toxic people survive by destabilizing others, they are deeply uncomfortable around those who remain calm. There is one important thing to be clear about. The 3-second rule is not silence for the sake of endurance. It is silence so you are not controlled. It is the state of, I hear you, but I do not let you steer me. And when you can do this, you send a new and very clear signal to the other person's brain. You cannot control me with words.
Once you understand that reacting too quickly is how you unintentionally give away power, there is another habit that needs to be confronted, one that is often even harder to let go of than emotional reactions. That habit is explaining yourself in order to be understood. On the surface, it sounds like a good thing. But in many toxic relationships, this is exactly what keeps you in a weak position for the longest time. Pay attention to this. Every time you make a choice that does not meet someone else's expectations, do you automatically add a reason afterward? Because you are busy, because you are tired, because of the situation, because today is not convenient. In your mind, you believe you are being polite. You think you are helping them understand so there is no misunderstanding. But in behavioral psychology, every time you over-explain, you are sending a very sensitive signal. I feel like I need you to approve of my choice. And this is the key point. People who truly respect you do not need long explanations. They hear your choice and they adjust. Toxic people, on the other hand, are extremely sensitive to whether you need their approval. When they see that you explain in order to feel at ease, they understand that you are placing their feelings above your own certainty. And once they sense that, they start pushing further. In contrast, a short response, like, because that is my choice, carries a completely different psychological message. What is interesting is that you do not need to say it with a firm or aggressive tone. You simply say it as a plain fact, the same way you would say that it is raining today. When you do not feel guilty about your choices, it becomes very difficult for others to pull explanations out of you. Toxic people are not afraid of you talking too much. They're afraid of you not needing to talk at all. Because when you stop explaining, they lose their grip. There is nothing left to latch onto, no opening to provoke. And this is often the moment when their true nature shows. Either they become frustrated because they can no longer control you, or they pull away because the game is no longer enjoyable.
There is a deeper level beyond this, and this is where many people struggle, even when they understand it intellectually. That level is consequences. Not consequences through words, but consequences through behavior. People do not learn through moral lectures. People learn by what happens after their actions. If someone repeatedly speaks to you with disrespect, yet the relationship remains unchanged, your attention remains the same, and your presence stays fully available, their brain learns something very clearly. This behavior is safe. There is no reason to change. This is where many people get it wrong. They believe that silent endurance is a form of virtue. But in behavioral psychology, endurance does not create morality. It creates patterns, and those patterns often work against you. Creating consequences does not mean arguing, making a scene, or cutting someone off immediately. Creating consequences means pulling back your presence. Psychologically, this is very powerful because access is a form of power. Your time, your attention, your energy are all resources. When you give them away too easily, they lose value. When you withdraw them at the right moment, the other person's brain immediately registers the change. At this point, there are usually 3 types of reactions. The first type is the person who adjusts their behavior. They soften, become more polite, more careful. These are the people who are capable of learning. The second type becomes irritated and says that you have changed or become distant. In reality, they are simply uncomfortable because they lost access. The third type pulls away completely. When you combine 3 things, not reacting impulsively, not over-explaining, and withdrawing your presence when necessary, you no longer need to say, "Do not treat me like that." Your behavior has already spoken. And in psychology, behavior always speaks louder than words. At the deepest level, this only works when you accept one very difficult truth. Some people will not like you. When you are no longer afraid of losing others, you become truly free in how you carry yourself. You do not need to please everyone. You do not need to hold on to relationships that drain you. And that is exactly when toxic people lose their reason to stay. You do not need to practice all of this every day. You only need to do it once, in one important moment where you would normally react out of old habit. That moment is like a turning point. You choose a different direction, and the other person gets left behind.
There is one more level of strength. This is the level where toxic people not only feel confused, but completely lose their reason to remain in your life. It happens when you are genuinely comfortable being alone. Comfort here does not mean telling yourself, "I am fine," while still fearing abandonment inside. It is a state where you do not need anyone to feel complete. You do not need a message to feel secure about your worth. You do not need a relationship to fill an inner gap. And when you reach this state, the balance of power in relationships begins to shift. In behavioral psychology, need always places you in a lower position. The one who needs more is more likely to compromise. The one who fears loss more is easier to lead. Toxic people are very good at sensing this. They can feel who needs them, who is trying to hold on, who is afraid of being left. But when you stop needing, something strange happens. Other people begin to need you. You stop chasing. You stop messaging first out of anxiety. You stop holding relationships together by sacrificing your emotions. You live your life focused on what makes you feel full, and that fullness is what gives you value. Stopping the chase is not abandoning others, it is stopping the abandonment of yourself. Many people become exhausted in relationships, not because they give too much, but because they give with the hope of being kept. You will notice this very clearly. When you become comfortable being alone, the people who once drained you begin to fade away. There is no noise. They simply show up less. Messages slow down. Conversations lose momentum because you no longer provide what they relied on: unconditional attention, emotional reactions, and fear of losing the relationship. Your life may not feel as crowded as before, but it feels much lighter. That is a sign you have stepped into a more mature psychological stage. And now, the most important part. You do not need to change everything. You only need to choose one thing this week. One moment where you do not react. One moment where you do not explain. One moment where you do not message first. One moment where you allow others to adjust instead of chasing after them. You were not born to let people cross your boundaries just because you are afraid of being alone. You were born to have relationships where you do not have to shrink yourself to stay. And the moment you understand this, life begins to reorganize itself in a very natural way. If any part of this content resonated with you, do not just listen and move on. Choose one thing and do it right after this video ends. And if you want to continue exploring everyday psychology like this, stay with us on this channel. Because when you truly understand human behavior, life genuinely becomes lighter. See you in the next video.